million.
We're going to do it. Road trip.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's start planning it now.
Yeah, that'll be good.
So 2019, what's coming up? We got a whole lot of things, right?
Lots of stuff.
Michael, you still engaged over there? What's going on?
Listen, I'm taking it all in. I just
He's taking it all.
picking my spot to jump in.
So we talked about actions left to do. We still talked about the licensing board being in place. It is still an impediment to the rollout of the MMFLA program. We still, although they voted unanimously to support this resolution, they voted unanimously to support resolutions given to them by Lara in the past. So that's not unique. It doesn't make them special people.
Well, you know what? I wanted to run by Michael too. This new bit about how they're going to put our photos on the cards now. We haven't talked about that at all.
I saw it. I think that's only MMFLA. I don't think it was the MMMA. It was an amendment to the MMFLA on.
So it applies only for applicants, but they wouldn't have a card anyway. They wouldn't have a card anyway. So what would you be talking about?
I don't know. I might be wrong, but
no,
I'm
I read it a couple of times. It says both.
I'm pretty sure that patient cards will be reissued with photos, or
Wow.
when they're renewed, they'll come with
It only took 11 years, you guys.
I know they make these cards, and for those people who may be listening to Planet Green Trees and have never seen a Michigan medical marijuana card, there's a lovely spot right there for a photo. It's been there ever since they started initially issuing cards,
pasting our own photos on.
and Oakland County cops were doing that before it was fashionable.
Yeah. That's how you knew it was fake. Was there was a photo on it?
Right.
Surely did. Yep.
It's like those fake IDs we used to have in high school.
So they've created an opportunity for the picture to be there, but there's always been resistance from the Secretary of State and from the Licensing and Regulatory Affairs as far as combining those two databases to pull those pictures. And now the Michigan legislature drafted a law, which was signed by Governor Snyder, ex-Governor Snyder, thank you, that authorizes them to put the photos on there. So that's what we're talking about here, folks.
I think this is an interesting point we kind of talked about a little bit today about how the Secretary of State may or may not interact with the MMMA's database because
it's a one-way data flow.
It should be we request a photo and they provide a photo.
Right. There's no interaction with the database.
I hope that's the way it goes.
Well, the production means that from an account somebody was gathered, data may be gathered from
from the requests, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
You could compile that data.
But what I'm saying is this.
But Jocelyn Benson, I don't think, has an axe to grind with us, does she? I hope not.
She may not be in that. Thinking about that, I don't know. But I would say this: unless there is, if you look back at an opinion written by Mike Cox of the issue of whether or not they could subcontract out the duties of Lara or the department at the time, he said yes, you could, but for the concerns that were had because of the possibility of a breach of security of the names.
Section 6.
And since then, I think there's been some. Well, now there's legislation to that regard. But here's the concern. Flipping this around. Many of you may or may not know this, and there may be no sympathy for this. Maybe there is, but it's an interesting issue nonetheless from a legal perspective. Individuals who have lost their license.
Lost it like I misplaced it, or lost it like it was taken from them?
No, not even close. But
which one? Which one?
It's not a yes or no.
It's one or the other.
Listen.
It's never yes or no with Michael.
First of all, I wanted to mention that if there's a picture on the card, if there's a picture on the card, you'd think they'd have to amend the MMA, which requires presentment of the card and ID. So that, you know what I mean. So for two of those things,
but that is ID though. The card is.
That's
ID.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Without a picture, it's not an ID.
Without it, yeah, it's not.
Well,
without a picture, it's just.
Airport in Washington D.C. to get on the plane.
That was
you
very
did?
lucky for us, yes.
Yeah, somebody was just like, all right, get on the plane, because it's definitely not ID.
It was the only thing I had that they accepted.
The state registered identification.
What were you doing without any ID in another state?
I lost my license in Washington D.C.
Oh.
So
did you get it? Because I had my wallet.
Let's go back. You still haven't answered my question.
Yeah, you took all my shit.
Was it lost as in misplaced or lost as in taken?
That's what I said. Lost it. Yeah, because I had my pocket picked in D.C. one time. I got all my money and cards.
I'm talking about someone who has had their license actions taken against their license via the Secretary of
I
State,
see.
i.e.,
So sanctions
controlled
against their
substance,
license.
driving offense, 2 or more
Yes.
within 7 years results in a mandatory 1-year suspension.
Boom.
The Secretary of State knows that I have a card. Aren't they going to perhaps be watching me?
Well, this is
And-
what I'm saying.
And then am I on like friends that we talked about a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, who got a ticket, and it's stated on their card that their occupation was cannabis grower. So I'm wondering if this is going to be in the lien system now.
That's kind of what I'm getting at a little bit, because my opponent is trying to like look at this from the opposite perspective. This is what I know. I know individuals who are subject to those kind of licensing sanctions. They sit in a state of suspended, okay, because of
Yeah.
2 or more controlled substance.
Or a DUI,
Convictions.
2 of them. Yeah.
Right.
And,
It
yeah.
could be a
10,
drug.
10 years, but I know somebody who was just in limbo like that.
Well, it's all dictated by
License, yeah.
the Secretary of State.
Right.
If you lose your license, or you're going to lose your license because you have 2 convictions, they send you a notice saying you're suspended and you become eligible on this date. Okay?
Every year you can beg for it back, and every year they tell you
There's
fuck you.
statutes for different reasons. If you have 2, like for it even goes to things like this. If you are suspended, and depending on the reason why you're suspended, and you pick up a moving violation, it can increase your suspension.
Yes.
You know-
It starts over.
So, but there's a process by which an individual that I'm speaking of, who's subject to licensing sanctions for 2 or more, or 3 or more alcohol-related or drug-related driving convictions, to get into the process of regaining their privilege to drive, okay? And under this circumstance that I'm describing, the path is to petition the Driver's License Appeal Division, schedule a administrative review with the hearing officer who's a lawyer,
And they're very receptive.
and they're not really.
No, I know. I'm
There's
being
a-
very
there's-
facetious.
The premise of the review is that if you've lost your license for alcohol or drug-related offenses, you are an addict. Do not come in there suggesting that you're not. And before you come in there, they're going to require you to show that you've been abstinent from all controlled substances other than those prescribed, and you've passed a 12-level drug screen showing that you have clean.
They make you go into rehab and shit too, Michael.
And when you and
They do.
it's your burden by clear and convincing evidence to establish that you are that you have abstained from alcohol, and that you have developed a program and minimized the possibility of you drinking again and or drinking and driving again. It's your burden to prove all these things. And there's a whole list of things of how to do it. And there's different ways to go about proving it. But the point I'm trying to make here is when someone is trying to get into that path to get their license back, nothing that I just described for you of what you have to do recognizes a medical marijuana patient. In other words, if you were to go get your 12...
Shall not be denied any right or privilege.
Thank you. But I'm saying to you, this is the rub. The rub is if you call a lawyer that does driver's license appeal division or driver's license appeals work, and they will tell you that if you're a medical marijuana patient, you are not going to get your license back. Number one. Now, this is obviously a challengeable situation, especially in light of the fact that, as we've been told, and I think there's some evidence that people have utilized cannabis to stop drinking alcohol. Aha. Because, it's interesting, like there's, to just speak generally and not, in order for a person to pass that test before the driver's license appeal division, they want to have confidence in you that you have accepted, that you are overpowered by whatever the substance is and embrace some kind of program. Most of the time, the AA, the steps, the religious elements, if you talk and do it effectively, and your presentation hits the points that are necessary, you will get it back. But there are circumstances where someone is just not there and you can't do that, and you have to find out and draw from the person's position that they've abstained from some other evidence that establishes it. And that, of course, for the state, the best thing you can do is usually find religious sources. They want to know that you are in church. They want to know that you've committed to God, and you talk to your pastor. I've had people say, when I got married, me and my wife committed, blah, blah. But it's some kind of like beginning over as you
Sounds
go into.
constitutional.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's not.
So, and since this period that I'm talking about, there are other treatments that are more secular than others. Like there's a couple now. If you can't buy into the, greater power thing of AA, you can go to these other. There's like a more secular that is now being accepted within the courts. My point is, what if it was really true that the reason the person stopped drinking and was sober for X amount of years, and they were able to make their case and show their network, was because of their use of cannabis?
They'd call that substitution and call them an addict.
Yes, they would.
They would call it substance abuse. But I'm saying to you, and I had this conversation with them, you want to, it's similar to a Section 8 presentation. It's all about the testimony of the person, the patient, how they make their case, how they express it. Do they seem sympathetic? Do they seem sincere? What are they talking about? One of my favorite questions would be like, what is your favorite step? Please explain why. It gives them a chance to kind of, it's like, why are you a medical marijuana patient? Please explain why. Or what happened and why did what happened when you went to the doctor? Those kind of questions that give them the opportunity. So, and the only point I'm trying to make is the preparation for this is always about listening to the client as the things that have moved them and trying to exaggerate them and draw a story, a theme of this presentation so that the Driver's Appeal Board is compelled and we've met our standard. But I'm saying, wouldn't it be nice if the answer was, I didn't do all of that. I just started using cannabis. And my capacities came back to me, and I realized how, first of all, stupid, and they're able to make the case of the, I don't know,
Well, let me tell you what the common belief is out there, general public. So, for instance, I'm one of those people who has successfully quit alcohol for over 2.5 years now, and cannabis has played a part in that. There's several other aspects in that to my sobriety, but my point is that some people have the nerve to actually say to my face, well, you've just traded one thing for another.
There it is.
Being cannabis for alcohol. And that's a general consensus, I think, that a falsity about cannabis that people tend to believe. And
I think
so
it's...
I will kindly return after I lay into them a little bit, and I'll be, well, if it makes you feel better, we can just call me green and sober. How about that? And then I walk away.
In the literal sense, I guess they're not wrong if you look at it from a literal sense. But, it's literally like saying,
literal sense.
But one is a very harmful substance and the other is not.
Exactly.
But hold on. Isn't that what AA is?
Substances.
Aren't you...
Yes, it is.
Aren't you obsessing now and expending all these resources in AA? Isn't AA just a substitute for...
It is.
Yeah.
All right, so...
Right.
It fills the time.
Now you got to walk around, trying to proselytize and convert everyone to not drinking. Not that you have to, but you've,
it's a sheeple thing.
And it's also I don't know. There's a lot of people that.
And the program's not effective.
No, it's not.
That's the other thing is
most people go back to
only,
it.
5% success rate, Jim.
Right. It's
with or without
it's
AA.
very similar. It's very similar to the same percentage of the general population of alcoholics and addicts that just spontaneously go into remission.
Just imagine if you went and sat down in your school class and took 100-question test and only answered 5 right.
Right. And that's
you
not
might fail the class. The entire class with the one test score that low.
That's true.
We get fired.
That's
so
true.
how did these so-called rehab programs continue to operate and draw money from our insurance systems and everything else, and everybody holds the word of these professionals who run these things as the word of God.
Because it works for a year or so. It works for a year or so, and then 95% of the people after a year are right back to drinking again. So it's just like the court system. It's just a continuous loop of grabbing money from people and